What's a small, seemingly insignificant decision you've made that ended up having a huge impact on your life? On a night out I went to Burger King and at the last second decided to get chicken nuggets with my burger instead of chips. I ate the burger but didn't feel like the nuggets by this point, and wished I'd gotten chips instead, so I asked the person opposite me on the bus if he wanted them. My exact words were, "Aye lad, do you want my chicken nuggets?" He said yes and we got talking. That was 16 years ago and now we are married with a beautiful daughter. Not punk sorry but very indie at the time, and yes, my husband was a regular, but very handsome, dude. Who had also already eaten 20 nuggets from McDonald's at this point, but he said, if a gorgeous blonde girl on the bus offers you nuggets you bloody take them. He missed his stop because we were talking and went to get off the bus, but I said he didn't have my number yet and for some reason he stayed on until my stop and then took my number. Good job really. Entered the green card lottery. Friend was trying to figure out how to do it, so I downloaded the instructions and completed an application to show them how. Since it was easier than asking them for all their info, I made a dummy application using my own info. When I was done I thought, meh, might as well, and dropped my application into the outgoing mail. Then forgot all about it. I was highly confused when, nearly a year later, I got a letter from the State Department. I've been in the US for 20 years now, married, kids, the whole thing. Biggest change I ever made, and it was just a random 15-minute thing I did to help a buddy. I broke my hand playing soccer in high school, fell, landed awkwardly. Consequently, all I could do for gym class was walk a loop around the track the entire class period until my cast came off. A girl had a cast on her broken finger, hers got accidentally closed in a car door, so she walked with me every day, and we talked and hit it off. 20+ years later we're married with a couple of kids. I met my wife in AP Bio and we just happened to hit it off because we both liked Star Wars. Back in the day I had a profile on Lava Life, and one of the things that it said was that I was kind of a nerd who really liked Star Wars. A woman messaged me. After some conversation, one of the things that came out was that she had never actually stayed awake for an entire Star Wars movie. She still really has no interest in Star Wars. I know this because we've been married for 13 years and have 2 children. The funny thing is I have a lot less interest in Star Wars now, due to media oversaturation. I went to prison for a robbery. I did it. I was a heroin addict. After almost 5 years in, at a work center, I got a write-up which would make me stay in for a few months longer. The warden offered a deal: if I would paint a mural at a local high school of their mascot, they'd forgive the write-up. I had always been good at drawing, they knew that, which is why they asked, but had never done a mural. I figured out how to scale it up in my head and did it. I got out about 6 months later and made it my career. I'm now married, happy, and fully booked until summer of next year for work, owning my own business. In September, I will have been out for 10 years. I also hid my initials in the high school mascot mural. Was talking about communication encryption on a conference panel moderated by my friend, and I gave an example about unsecured Russian comms from the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905. I was a full-time programmer back then. After the conference ended, my friend came to me and said, "Hey, I just started a new magazine. Would you write an article about the Russo-Japanese War for me?" Yeah, sure, why not? 10 years later, 1,000 articles later and 8 books later, I am somehow a fairly known author/journalist/blogger, and someone started a, check, Wikipedia entry about me. Still do some programming in PHP, Python and C++, though. Worked in a kindergarten during my gap years between high school and university. I didn't even plan to go at the time. A kid with speech and social issues happened to take a special liking to me, resulting in me agreeing to work closely with his speech therapist, despite only being the teacher's assistant. This reignited my interest in language and made me apply to be a linguistics major. My high school grades made it a long shot, but it turns out that very year they tested out a new system of accepting 50% of students based on motivational essays, to try to combat a high dropout rate in linguistics. I made it in on that. They ditched it the next year cause it didn't work. I now have masters in language psychology and start teaching at the same university this semester. If I had applied literally any other year, my chances would have been like lottery odds. Scratched myself up in the field in ROTC training due to my own stupidity. Debated whether to go to the medical tent, since it was super minor. I ultimately did, and the cot next to me was a cadet from another school that was in a unit more in line with my career goals. The cadet got me an interview with the commander, and when I graduated and commissioned, I was assigned there. In the first few months, I met my now wife, who was also new to the unit. Nearly 2 decades of marriage later, we're both retiring and traveling the world together. December 21st, 2014. A girl I was crushing over at the time and had some casual flirting with, was going to a party, but having asked her out the day before and been turned down, I decided to sack the party, go see my family early. I headed home a day earlier than planned for Christmas. Was living in Glasgow, took the train from Queen Street Station. Got the 14:39 train back home with no issues. Very next day on the news. Bin lorry had crashed into Queen Street Station around 2:30 in the afternoon. Driver had a heart attack and lost control of the vehicle and killed 6 people. The place where it crashed, I was walking by, with earphones on 24 hours before. So yeah, I didn't die because a girl turned me down and I decided not to head to the same party. Life's relentless. About 22 years ago I was fresh out of high school and had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I went out rollerblading one evening and I decided to go down this road that looked familiar. I noticed a house and thought, hey, that kinda looks like my buddy from HS's house, so I decided to knock. Sure enough, it was his house. He was having a LAN party that weekend and invited me to come over, so I did. Ended up meeting this obnoxious kid who wouldn't leave me alone. Kid ends up becoming my best friend and shaping the direction of my life. He eventually convinces me to play World of Warcraft when it came out. Roughly 3 years later I met my now wife in WoW. All because I decided to go up and knock on a door. First month of uni, can't wait to take faster bus home to take a dump and continue playing whatever. Cute girl I've helped with some computer tech class asks which bus I take as she thinks we live nearby, decide to, fine, I'll take the longer one. It's 11 years later, quit drinking and smoking, have depression under control, finished 2 masters, was about to quit bachelor's in the upcoming week, I'm petting our poodle, playing with our 9-month-old son while my super hot redhead, freckled, funnier than me, smarter than me, salt of the earth wife takes shower. And I'm asking myself how the duck I've got so used to this that I needed this post to get reminded how bloody unfairly lucky I've been, all thanks to deciding to hold that dump half an hour longer. I had no direction in college, so after year 3 I decided to take a break and just work. I already had a part-time job on the books and a friend encouraged me to look into a position he knew about in pharmacy. It was off the books, I had free time, so I decided to give it a shot. My boss taught me everything and had patience with me. I took to it like a fish in water and worked 2 part-time jobs while I decided what to do about college. 30-something years later, I'm licensed and proud to say I've learned a lot. That part-time, off-the-books gig, developed into a recession-proof job in healthcare that made it possible to provide for myself and family. Never thought I'd be in healthcare, and steadily climbed that occupational ladder. Don't be afraid to jump into new areas, especially if the support/training is there. On Friday, August 1st, 1997, I was going to go straight home from work, but a colleague talked me into going to the pub for a quick pint. 2 hours, a couple of shared joints and 4 pints later, I got on my push bike and made it about a quarter of the way home before coming off at the bottom of a steep hill and nearly getting killed. I was supposed to be going on a residential course the following Monday, but I was in hospital. I had to rebook onto another sitting, 5 weeks later, and 300 miles away. And that's where I met my wife, who was living overseas at the time, but by coincidence was planning to move back to where she grew up, literally walking distance from where I was living at the time. Not only did the accident cause me to meet the woman currently sitting next to me on the sofa, but forced me to completely reassess my life. I got my drinking and drug abuse under control, and have since gone sober, and got me off the self-destructive path I was on. At 5 years old I decided to pick sides between my emotionally scared mother and my alcoholic stepfather. I picked the side of my stepfather. At 21 years I figured out that that decision caused me to develop social adjustment disorder, which I got diagnosed a year later. After 5 years of therapy and self-reflection I got ready to move to a big city and go to university. I am still a little socially crippled but far better than 5 years ago. It took me quite some time, but now I am able to talk to people. Deciding to talk to someone who was angry at his results during a test in class, we were both 15M. We became best friends incredibly quickly, having incredible fun together, wanted to start our rock band. Hell, he fell in love with a girl and I was heads over heels for her own best friend. What a crazy time. But when died just 2 months after that, of course everything just crashed down. At the funeral, I was the only representative from high school with our French teacher, with whom he practiced theater. When she mentioned it to me, I proposed to take his place in the play that was being prepared for the end of the year. What followed was an amazing adventure of 2 years of building back my self-confidence, meeting incredible people, having an incredible time, which allowed me to end my high school after my last play with the troupe, and receiving a thunderous round of applause after the eulogy I did at the end of said play. He was the most comedic person I've ever met. Of course I asked for a celebration instead of a minute of silence. Amory, it's been 11 years already, but I wouldn't be half the man I am without the few months we had together. Just like you, I don't believe in life after death, but if there's one person I'd be dying to meet again, of course that'd be you, bloody moron. Broke up with my high school sweetheart before college because I didn't want a long-distance relationship. I would come to regret it and miss her miserably over the next 5 years, even while dating other people. I would stalk her MySpace pics, yes I'm that old, and she just got more and more beautiful every day. One day, my friends were grabbing a bite to eat then heading to the local mall. They invited me but I wasn't feeling it and absolutely refused to go. They managed to talk me into it. Long story short, I bumped into that old flame at the Sunglass Hut and the rest is history. Happily married for 12 years with a great life and 2 amazing kids. I always think about what would have happened, or not happened, if I had the will to say no to my friends just one more time. It just seems so improbable to me how my life turned on that one decision. 1. I had a blind date for coffee with someone. She just wasn't my type at all. But I figured, hey, what could it hurt to have a nice conversation? 2 weeks later, she invited me to a party she was having. I had nothing to do, so I say, why not? I met my future wife there. Never turn down an opportunity to meet someone or to have a conversation. Because, hey, you never know. 2. About 10 years ago, I was working in advertising. I wrote something really nice for a nonprofit. The AE I worked with said, wow. This is nice. Ever though of writing a novel? Every story has a backstory. When I was in college, I was an English major. One of our classmates was a total bully, the kind who smoked clove cigarettes, faked fainting spells, and just trashed everyone. I mentioned in conversation that I wouldn't mind writing a novel. She heard it and said, yeah, don't quit your day job whatever that will be. I have no idea why that embedded in my head, but it did. Fast forward to 10 years ago, I said, why not? My first novel was shit. But my second novel went to a development editor who, after a couple of passes, said, this is one of my most beautiful things I've ever read. She's now introducing me to agents and is shepherding me through the writing of a third novel. Getting a novel published, especially if it's not by the numbers genre fiction, is a tortuous path. But if I ever get published, I'm sending a copy of it to that bitch from college with a big foo next to my autograph. And I'll send a nice note of thanks to the AE who encouraged me to start on this journey. Never give up, guys. Giving up is the death of the soul. Accompanied a friend to a wedding because she didn't want to show up without a date. It was boring and tacky, and I was impatient to head to a bar afterward. But on the way back downtown from the wedding reception, my friend needed to stop by this block party and deliver a birthday present to her neighbor. I grudgingly agreed to go for a little while before continuing to the bar. On the way from the car to the party, my friend casually mentions that she'd been meaning to introduce me to her neighbor, actually. I smelled a setup, but went along anyway. 2 hours later, I'd completely forgotten about the bar and pretty much anything else as the neighbors said I had been excitedly talking to each other at the party, to the point of ignoring everyone around us. Our kid just started kindergarten earlier this month. When I was 18, I had a job offer from Best Buy and a local car wash. Despite everyone telling me not to take the car wash job, I did. Worked there for 14 years. Started part-time and worked my way up to regional manager over 16 washes in the state. I currently have a job at a national car wash company as a business development manager helping owners run their car washes. Around the same time, I was driving to go get some food, saw my ex-girlfriend from high school driving next to me. I decided to call her and told her to pull over. We hung out that whole night and the rest of spring break. 13 years later, we are married with a 4-year-old daughter. Life has been good to me. In basic training, I decided to take 30 seconds to help a kid properly fold one of his t-shirts in preparation for an inspection. Because of this, when the inspection was being conducted, as the instructor went through my wall locker, he found some dust on the bottom of the rail the drawer slides on. I didn't have time to wipe that down. I got washed back 2 weeks, because it was the end of the year and there were no more groups right behind mine. Meanwhile, mine Air Force Base just had a huge nuclear missile incident. Almost all of my team from tech school training, military police, was sent to North Dakota. Everyone from my original group in basic training was sent all over the world. I met my first and second wives in North Dakota, and I have 2 kids out of it that I love very much. A little over a year ago, I read a fanfic and something in my brain was telling me that I should comment, something I rarely do. Did this for another month or 2 until I decided to leave my Discord on my comments. We now message each other every day, and we even met in person back in June to attend the convention together. She's my best friend, and it all came from one silly little comment I left on her story.